The next customer that I wanted to just talk about, to give you an example of what I do. I actually have known this gentleman and his wife for about a year and a half, something like that, in my other role as a Dementia Cafes coordinator, which I've now stopped doing because I have so much I need to do here. But he came along to one of my dementia education sessions in the community, and he came along to understand a bit more about his wife's dementia. And following that education session at Fairclough Centre, he asked me if I would come along and do a specific home visit for him and his wife, but also he wanted to get his daughter along. So we set that up. I went to visit them, and we had such an emotionally charged hour or so in their front room. This gentleman, bless him, was at the point of burnout, and carer burnout is a real thing, and it's something that I'm very much always looking for, because what we don't want in a situation where the family carer is looking after the person with dementia at home without regular support by a care assistant or care expert or anybody else going in, just the odd maybe family visit where they, you know, might take mum out for a bit, but that's kind of not enough. So this gentleman had support from his children, but he was exhausted. So we talked about this, and it became very obvious the more he talked that he couldn't even talk about the possibility of anybody looking after his lovely wife if it wasn't him doing it. He couldn't even talk about that without becoming very emotional. So his daughter, who was also present, was clearly very concerned about her dad, and could see how much of a toll it was taking on him to be looking after this lady's mother at home. And I don't know, do you call it an intervention? I think it might have been an intervention. It happened anyway, organically, whatever it was. And our conversation moved on to, okay, what we really need to be talking about here is not, you know, what activities the lady liked to do, or, you know, what I could suggest they do with her in order to give her mental stimulation and whatever. That was initially what I thought I was going to talk about, but then clearly I wasn't. It was something else. We were talking about something else. The subject moved on, and we talked about how he was feeling. I got him to talk about what the normal day for him and what things he did to help support his wife, and all of this. A lot of this was through tears, his tears, because he felt so strongly, and it's such a common thing, he felt so strongly that it was his job to look after her. And to him, the thought of giving up that role to somebody else to look after her, when all she'd done throughout their married life was to follow him around the world, support him wherever he was sent to, and to hold his life at home together while he went off and did his job, his career. They travelled all sorts of countries. They lived overseas for a long time, and she was always there, holding the home, holding the fort at home, looking after the children, and he was off, providing for the family. So he felt a huge debt to his wife, and just the thought of not being the one that was looking after her caused him huge emotional strain. So we then had a very honest conversation, him and I, about my observations of him and his wife over the last year or so, since I'd known them, since I've been seeing them on a regular basis, my observations about him and his own personal health, my observations about his wife, and how I'd noticed that she was struggling with certain situations where there were lots of people around, where there was lots of noise, and about what I felt was happening. And it was like a light bulb moment for him to hear, and I'm sure his daughter had been saying all this, you know, I wasn't saying anything that was new, but to him, and the difference is that it was somebody outside of his family, another person who wasn't as emotionally involved as he or his daughter was, but somebody else who, he told me, whose opinion he respected and valued. But it was when I said to him, you need to stop doing so much, you need to stand back, and you need to look after yourself better, because this situation is not going anywhere good. And what we need you to do more than anything else right now for your wife is to be her husband, and to do the reminiscing with her, to talk to her about the days when they lived in wherever, to talk to her about the wedding day and what he remembered, and, you know, all of that's priceless stuff that he could do with his wife that nobody else was equipped to do. So we had a long conversation about that, and every time I've met this gentleman, because I do bump into him in various ways, every time I've met him since, gotta get upset again. Both of us become tearful. He gives me a huge hug, and he's a big man. I get this enormous bear hug, and I feel a little bit pulverized, but it's done with so much feeling, gratefulness, thankfulness, but also so much emotion, because he recognized when we all had that chat in their living room that he needed to step back, and in everybody's best interest, that is exactly what he's done. As I say, his wife was not a customer of ours. It was a one-off home visit that I did, so that's just a one-off fee, but as I say, the support continues, and I drop him the odd email. He still emails me to say, I'm so glad I made that difficult decision. It wasn't easy, but I now can see, with the distance and, you know, the time that's come and gone since his wife was still living at home, the decision for her to move into care was the right decision. They didn't have a spare room in their little bungalow, so they couldn't have had a living carer. So the only option for them was either that his wife went to live with one of his children, which I don't think was what the family wanted. It's certainly not what the husband wanted either, because I don't think he would have been able to contain himself not being around every day and still doing everything he was doing at home. So that decision was made that his wife should go into a care home. So he's now visiting her in the care home, and I've been promised a cup of coffee and a meet up whenever he has acclimatized to the situation a bit better, because he wants to meet and tell me all about it. And again, this is my job. This is listening, and if necessary, steering the conversation towards a different psychological perspective. But generally, family carers just want to unburden themselves, and having the opportunity to talk to somebody who understands from personal experience and from, you know, lived in experience and work experience, who understands what they're talking about, and can 150% empathise with every single emotion that they're dealing with, because I've been there myself, done it, seen it, got the t-shirt. So that is the other part of this role, and I wanted to talk about that gentleman in particular, and I'm going to keep him to his cup of coffee. We are going to meet, but when the time is right for him, but we still keep in touch, and that's lovely. So that's the end of this section about customers. I'm now going to move on to our wonderful care experts. So that's going to be the content of the next video.